Welcome to the Hardcore MBA podcast with your host, Erlend, Bakke. This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you.
Hello and welcome to Hardcore MBA, signing in here from New York City. Today I realized I am a third culture kid. That means I've basically grown up in different countries. I was born in London and then lived in Norway and then Germany and then back into Norway and then the UK and then Venezuela and then so that's why I invited Rockson here. He is an entrepreneur. He's a digital nomad. He can work from anywhere. He's the CEO and president of UYD Media, a media company that encourages people all over the world to use their difference to make a difference while celebrating diversity and educating others. He is an avid writer whose work can be seen on the Huffington Post as well as Global Living magazine. He is the author of The Ultimate Guide to TCK Living, and through his podcast and blog, he is heard and read by thousands of people in over 100 countries. Tayo, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Why do you want to be a digital nomad, and how do you get started?
Well, it really got started by accident. I was doing one of those things where you after school you get into the job and the job you don't like, and then you start creating content as a hobby, and then me being the nerd I am, I started looking into different ways to monetize that. And then having grown up in different countries, I was also getting restless because at the time I was living in a small college town in Virginia, and I really wanted to find a way to follow something that I was passionate about while also being able to live where I wanted. So I started looking into people like Lewis Howes and Sean Molleke and some of these digital guys who were doing stuff in remote areas, Tim Ferriss and stuff like that. And I read the 4-Hour Work Week and stuff like that. And then I said, when I moved to New York, that I was just going to create my own podcast of people who are like me and who identify with several cultures, because I didn't see anything like that out there. And then once I found the passion, I started doing that. I started creating this community of people. And the content itself is about nomads, so I just really wanted to, I started to really build this niche environment of people who started to have a sense of identity with some of the guests I was bringing on. And then from then on, I was able to start to release some products. And, the rest is history. But it really came out of me not being one to be chained down to a desk for 25 years, not doing something that I, didn't like.
So when did you get started? Like, when did you actually go, I'm gonna monetize this?
I decided to do that last year.
Right.
Because prior to this, I had been a little hesitant. The biggest fear with entrepreneurs is the fear of themselves. I'm going off on my own. Can I do this? I'm taking this gamble. So last year, I told you I was getting my MBA before we got on here, and for one of the jobs that I had, they had new management, and then one of the new bosses came on and called me into her office, and I thought it was a routine call, but she informed me that she was letting me go. So that was the first time I'd ever been laid up in anything. And then I was at a crossroads where I said, I have all this content of people and a community of people. I can either go back and easily find another job, or really take a gamble myself. And I said, I'm going to create a magazine, and I'm going to monetize a podcast, and I'm going to do all this. So with a podcast, you have things like sponsorship, advertising that you can do with the podcast. With the magazine, you can also do sponsorship and advertising depending on how relevant your content is to the advertiser. And then with the online school that I'm launching, those are courses that are priced at either monthly subscription or a one-off price. So those are some of the ways.
I too was also fired, and that also got me started as an entrepreneur.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, I got to hear the story now.
Well, I was working in brand consulting, and the way I actually got the job was that I pitched a new business model to the company that I was working for. I was like, okay, today the companies look like this, and the future companies will look like this. I can make this happen, and that's how I got the job. So I basically worked as a brand strategist, after like 6, 7, 8 months, my boss came over to me and said, "Let's go to the pub," and I was like, "Okay." Go to the pub? You never asked me to go to the pub. Like, I'm either getting promoted or fired.
Mm.
So, he sat me down with a pint. In the UK we drink pints, not beer glasses. They're pints. And then, he just looked me in the eye and said, "This isn't working out." And I was like, "Okay." Well, I wasn't really surprised because I realized I didn't really fit into the sort of group employee culture thing. Mm-hmm. I was also straight out of university, so I didn't really understand politics, like office politics.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and then I started a company with another guy, and everything else is history.
Since then, yeah. No, I love it. It's so interesting with entrepreneurs is when she let me know. I remember I was going back to my desk and I lost access to my email, and it was just so immediate. I thought I was in the movies. It was like carrying my box. I thought I didn't have to have a box to carry, but I just felt like, wow, I was walking in and walking out, and everybody was just looking. I was like, yikes. This is,
Did you do a Jerry Maguire, like, who's coming with me? Or?
I should have done it. I didn't. I said, "Who's coming with me? Show me the money." But no, I didn't even think of that. I think I was still like strong. I didn't even believe what was going on. I kept my composure. I didn't do like, what? This is the biggest mistake you make. But I couldn't even believe it was happening, and I was just walking, and but I think it's probably the best thing that happened to me. So.
I think I asked for feedback. I think I said like, okay, I understand. Can you give me some feedback? I think I got feedback. But I thought it really, like at the time it sucked big time. Like, I had bills to pay and I hadn't really saved up any money, and it was quite and I waited till the end of the day actually, so everybody left and then I left. I only told like one person or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's all good. So in retrospect, are you grateful for that?
I am. I honestly think if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't have started the company. Because for me, I always say people should follow their passion and people should do that. But one of the things that it taught me was that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I was, and I also needed to. Part of being an entrepreneur is learn not to deal with failures. And the failure, I could easily have gone down a spiral where I was like, you kidding me? Woe is me. I can't do this. Like, why am I getting fired? I should go there. But then I said, if there's ever any time for me to start a business, it would be now. And then if it didn't work out, at least I can say I did something that I wanted to do. And then, I could always go back to, corporate America or whatever. Yeah. So, no, it just really forced me to really look into myself and ask myself, Ty, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue working for somewhere else where you didn't like what you're doing anyway, or do you want to do something you want to do? And, I don't think I'd ask myself that question.
I think it's, I get emails from people sometimes, saying like, oh, this is my last chance. Like, this is my last chance at whatever. And it's like, no, like every day is a new chance, I know it's a cliche, but the way that I view business is that it's a bit like tennis, right? Like there's lots of games being played,
right? And
you just got to focus on like winning the next ball, right? But like, and you can divide that into like saying like one game is like a day, but you just focus on every day, and then try to have some wins, and then there's going to be some losses, and that's fine.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I'm a big tennis fan, so I don't know if you saw that when Nadal started beating Federer, there was that Wimbledon final. One of it's probably the best tennis game I've ever seen. I don't know, it was a while ago. Wimbledon final went on for like 4 hours. And they kept trading losses. At one point, it looked like Federer was going to win, and another point, it looked like Nadal was going to win, and it looked like Federer was going to win, then Nadal ended up winning. But it was the biggest shock because it was on grass. I was like, what? This is not clay. And then, but it was that. I can just imagine being in the mindset of those guys when it's like you're tired, and you have to push through, and you're like, could I just concede now? It's already the fifth set, and the fifth set just keeps going. So, tennis now just pretty. That's amazing. Yeah, with that.
I was actually at the final in London the year before, when Federer got his like 8th win or whatever.
Yeah.
That was also a really, really intense match. But I think in the end, like, we're competing against ourselves. So I don't really focus on being better than other entrepreneurs. Like, I feel that's like an external distraction. I focus on becoming better than myself.
That's good.
I think that's a way to do it for now, at least. That seems to be working okay when I remember to do it. So how do you monetize your business? You mentioned earlier some advertising. How long did it take you to monetize it, and what's challenging with it?
Well, yeah. So to monetizing it, it's a lot of with podcasts, for example. You have sponsors from companies or strategic partners, and it can be challenging, especially when you pitch yourself. I remember the first one I had was eCornell, and I was pitching them, and it was like a trial type of thing. But they always try to they either do it based on the amount of downloads you have, or you can set up like a flat monthly rate. Now, I'm still experimenting with both of them because it's still relatively new for me. But the problem with a flat monthly rate is that if your podcast grows, you're not growing with something that would happen if you had set up based on your downloads. But then the flip side to that is that if it's not flat, what happens if your podcast dips, right? So, but there's that, and then with strategic partners, for example, with the university I'm having, the course I have with international students, I'm currently in works with setting up a licensing model where I can license out the course to other international schools in America, and then in that way, you have several schools who are paying a fee on an annual fee, basically. And then, you have something coming basically on a monthly basis or on an annual basis, and then they have access to your content.
Can you explain a little bit more about how that works? So what you're saying is you have a membership website with training, and that's content that has been made, and that helps people add some kind of value to international students. And what you're doing is you're licensing that out so people can rebrand it as their own, and then you license that to schools. Am I right?
Yeah, well, it's not the rebranding part. When I'm saying license out to schools, a lot of international students, when they come here, they want to know how to fit in and how to understand and succeed. We deal with the cultural nuances, get jobs in America, and just fit into the environment. So a lot of international students, national departments and schools are looking for ways to help international students do just that. So either you can buy a certain amount of seats and give the student access to the login information, maybe buy 100 or 200 seats a year, and then all they do is just log in with their username and password, and they can access the content. Or it's a combination of that with me going there physically doing workshops. But it's the reason why it was on demand and online was because I really wanted to make a model that was easily accessible anywhere. So whatever if they went back home, for example, they could easily log in and say, hey, this is where I left off at the last training, and then I'll pick it up. So it's like a loose-home agreement where the school says, okay, I'll pay for like maybe 200 seats, and then you just give us access to 200 logins, and then we'll give it to our students. So, and that happens on an annual basis.
I love it. So you're using the business model called licensing, and that gives you a possibility to scale up the reach of your product.
That's correct.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I think about a lot. Is how can you? I want to do only things that can scale. So, for instance, a podcast is scalable, right? So if there's 50 downloads of this podcast, or if there's 5 million downloads, the cost of production is pretty much the same.
Yes.
Depending on where you're hosting, right? If you use Libsyn, I think they have free downloads. If you have your audio file on Amazon S3, this is going to get technical, but then you have to pay per download. Like, it's very minuscule.
Yeah, very minuscule. Yeah. No, you're right.
So in terms of scale, do you ever do like one-on-one coaching, or do you only do workshops and podcasts and your membership website? Well,
since it's like relatively new, so I'm one-on-one is definitely something that and I'm open to do it. But like you, I think it makes a lot more sense to scale. But I'm someone that likes to talk and like helping people. So I imagine there'll be some one-on-ones down the line. But in terms of entrepreneur and being digital nomad, sometimes it's not even feasible. It's not as feasible as it can be to do one-on-one all the time, because it won't scale, and it probably would take a lot of your time. But as an option, you could have like a Skype consultation, for example. Like, hey, you know what? I'll give you 30 minutes of Skype for an extra fee. You know, and that's another way to upsell. So let's say in addition to that, so that could be your one-on-one there. And then if it really must be one-on-one, then you could even charge even more if I'm having them pay for travel fare, whatever. Right. Then all that, but it really depends. But I do like what you said with the scalable. I don't think a lot of people think about the scalability of what they do when they open businesses, because that's really how they're going to stay in business. So, yeah.
I have recently been thinking a lot about whether, so instead of doing a lot of digital things, like we have multiple digital strategies, but if instead we had focused on events, like live events. Yeah. For instance, like the Fat Startup here in New York, they've had great events, great guests, and they've done that really, really well. And they've done well financially as well. So one thing that I thought about recently is like, okay, if we took all the money that we've invested in all our digital stuff, would that have been more effective if we'd first done the events, right? And then launched the digital strategy? That's something that I've been thinking a lot about recently.
Well, no, you should. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because it has crossed my mind, but I didn't know if I had the bandwidth to do that. So I don't know. I don't even know what the first thing to do with that would be. So, but it sounds like, I mean, it could be. But what would you say? How would you go about doing that?
Well, I'm a really big fan of like looking at other people's businesses and then figuring out, because when you look at a business, the good old Pareto rule is like 20% of what they're doing is bringing 80% of their income. So, right. When I look at the sort of legends like Tony Robbins and T. Harv Eker and now like the new guys, Brendan Burchard, right? Like he's the one crushing it for most money at the moment. Mm-hmm. I think Tony Robbins is still doing okay. But
not too shabby.
Not too shabby. But when I look at what they've done, I think it's the seminars that are still bringing in the most money, because people go away, they stay together in a group. There's like this community feel. You get to interact live with the person, and it just builds a much deeper bond with people than if you read an article online or if you read somebody's book or whatever. It's just a different type of bond when you've physically been in the same room, right? You've had a conversation that just builds a much stronger tribe. So although I think the digital strategies are amazing, I think that your digital strategies will become that much better when you do lots of live in-person seminars. Because what you can do with that seminar is that you can film it, and then you can create a product out of it, right? And then you can create a book out of it. But I think it starts with the seminars, and I've only done a few seminars, right? I've only done a few of them. I've spoken at others, but I have been focused on the digital strategies. So, without grabbing the mic too much, my strategy in London, when we move back there, is to do lots and lots of seminars, because I believe that's what I personally want to do. I personally want to be in a room with people, and then I also want to have this sort of supplements. I view kind of digital stuff as supplements more than the real deal when it comes to like training and learning.
So do you? No. One of the few things that I want to pick up on that was, so you can start like with doing this, and this is your building your community. By the time you maybe like a few months down the line, you can say, hey, I'm launching this seminar, and then you start to put the idea in their head. But I think the thing with digital and written is that when you start to build fans and rabid fans, that 1,000 true fan concept, is you would have people who would buy into whatever you launch, and then they can be your champions and tell you, hey, I'm heading over to.
Would you like to have a signed paperback copy of the #1 international bestseller book, Never Work Again? All you have to do is write an honest review on Amazon and email us your address and a screenshot of your review to Erlend at MrOutsource.com.
His conference in London, and I've listened to his podcast for 6 months. It's really, really great stuff. You should come. He's going to have speakers like such and such. So I think the digital things, like you said, could be means of advertising, free advertising, really, to hundreds and thousands of people all over the world. And then you can, if you have a blog or whatever, you can have people where you can test out the level of engagement. If you say, hey, fill out the form at suchandsuch.com here, and we'll leave feedback and tell me what you like to see at the conference. So you can make it a 360 type of approach where you're using each of your avenues to interact with them, and that way you're ultimately creating the conference or some seminar that they want based on their feedback.
Yeah, I think you have to have both, right?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, if I was going to start out again, what would be my strategy? Would it be digital or physical? And I think it would be physical.
Physical first?
I think so.
All right.
That's my hunch. But when I started out speaking and stuff, I didn't want to do that, right? I didn't want to stand in front of people. Hence the digital strategy. So
it sounds like you got over that fear. I think your picture in Skype is you standing and speaking,
right,
and saying "never work again."
Yeah, we never work again. I said I was at a dinner yesterday, and I said people were asking me, "What do I do?" And I said, "Oh, never work."
I'm sure that went over well. What is this guy saying?
What do you mean? So you're launching UYDuniversity.com. Can you tell us a little bit about your strategy, what software you used, how long it took you to put together, and what the price point is and why?
Okay, so I have been working on this for I don't want to say 3-4 months. I through the podcast, I met a lot of cool people who had similar ideas what I was doing. And they were experts in their field of cultural leadership and global, what it's like to live a global environment. And I started investigating what it was like to create courses, because people started, saying, we love the content of the podcast. Where can we learn more? And I said, what I'm about to do is create a movement. My mission statement is use your difference to make a difference. That's what UID stands for. And the ultimate goal is to help build the next set of global leaders, because I feel like the best way to have global leaders are people that actually know what it's like to communicate across cultures and think outside the box. So I sat down one day and I was like, I need to create a platform for people to access resources on what it's like to actually do all these things that I'm saying. And it's one thing to have daily content like I do on the magazine, UIDmag.com, but what if there was an actually resource where the experts were teaching people? So I started looking into membership sites, and one of the sites that I came across was usefedora.com, and I really liked how accessible it was. All I needed to do was really upload videos and stuff like that. There's still kinks here and there. But it's always, I feel like you find kinks in any of these sites. But I basically pitched it to some of the guests that I had that I felt like were the best, and I said, hey, I think I like what you do, and I think it'd be great if we put it together as some sort of online school where we can pitch it out to other people who are looking for resources like this. So there's one particularly on first-time travelers. So if someone is really like, well, I'm not a global nomad, I want to know what it's like to actually travel for the first time, I'm like, well, you got one there for you. And if there's people coming here, I have one for them. And that was the genesis of that. It was more of a vision, and then it became more of a reality the more I started thinking of it more and the more I pitched it. So I've been project managing that for a few months, and then I decided that I was going to launch this month. And then the strategy behind that was really tapping into the network that I have and seeing with the particular courses, trying to make partnerships with globally minded companies, people that are multinationals or in international schools. So maybe people that tend to send people expats abroad, or people that tend to send their kids abroad. Those type of companies and schools. I'm working with them to sort of set some sort of model where they can have access to the course and just be able to feel more at home.
Cool. So what's your strategy for the actual launch? You got a launch page, you got a countdown timer, you got like 3 steps.
Well, I did the untraditional. I tried something a little untraditional. I didn't do the launch or the timer. I did. I actually used a lot of the professors and the instructors to help. So a week before I'd been releasing these promo videos, I started with this long sales copy of what it was on the site, and then I started sending out teasers every week, and then I started having some of them shared out to their niche audience, because I knew this is such a niche topic. I didn't want to just do that, and they started sharing out to their niche audience, and like, that's interesting. And then each day it'll be something more, like a teaser about what to see, like a trailer basically of a movie, which is when you see a movie coming out. Oh, it's a trailer coming out, and they'll be sending that out to their audience. And then when the launch day comes, I just said, hey, just because you're one of the first people, you're going to have a 20% discount using this promo code. And then, that's what I've done. I was trying to do it a little different because I didn't want to just do something for the masses yet without really catering to the audiences that I had built. So
you're tapping into other people's lists to
my list, other people's list, and really targeted. And then that's been because the thing with online schools is you could do all this sometimes, but then everybody get excited. It doesn't really convert unless it's it's really relevant to them. So, I thought, why not use the resources that I have and, the list that we have access to and see what goes on.
Fantastic. And what do you love about working with the people? Like, why do you get energy from that?
Believe it or not, I was actually an introvert. So
okay.
I used to be very, very scared of actually interacting with people. But I remember when I was 10 and I had moved to Burkino Faso. It was a French-speaking country from Nigeria, and I just knew that I had to find a way to connect, to fit in, or to just feel like I was at home. And it just started with connecting with people. For me, sports, geography, and pop culture have always been 3 ways I connect with people. So, but then the more I started doing that, the more the more I realized that I really loved helping people. I loved seeing, for me, I'm happy when other people are happy doing what they want to do. So I loved that process. Just when you can see that light up in people. And I thought, this is something I would really like to do on a global scale. Especially growing up in different places, what I was blessed to have is a unique lens. And every time I would come back home to Nigeria, I'd always question and ask myself, why can't it be done this way? Why is it this way? And that just never left me. I was very stubborn in that. I was like, no, it's got to be better. This is not how it has to be. We don't have to be stuck in this mindset. So out of that stubbornness, I said, I'm going to do something about it, and I can't keep talking without actually walking the walk. So I started expressing myself. It started with writing, and then it started with speaking and podcasting, and then we're here today. But I guess I like to fix problems.
Yeah, it's interesting how you said that. Like, because you lived so many different places, Sweden, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Vietnam, United States. Like, you get all these. I think that's one of the things that I really like about living the sort of what I call the freedom lifestyle, is that you get to go all these cool countries and all these places, and you get to meet and see little things, like just how the different door handles are.
Yeah,
right? There's so many different door handles, and there's so many different like electrical plugs. When I was a kid, I thought that all the electrical plugs in the world were the same, and all the light switches. And then I remember going to like Germany, and I was like, the light switches are different. And then I went to the UK, and I was like, that's really stupid. They're really big in the UK, right? Because they have like the 3-plug system.
Right, you're so right.
So definitely like traveling and taking in, like a lot of people travel and they do the same stuff that they would do in their country instead of sort of exploring the place with an open mind, like a beginner's mind to traveling. I think is really important if you want to get inspired by another
Absolutely.
country.
Yeah, and one of my friends like to say it's the traveler's mindset. And the thing with traveling is that you don't do yourself any service if you stay in that bubble. You have to actually explore. I always encourage people to actually get uncomfortable. I've been lost in countries, and that's mainly because I'm very directionally challenged. But still, there are other reasons to do that. Is because it forces you to get out of your comfort zone and to actually connect. And that actually helps in many ways. Whether it's in business, I found diversity fosters innovation. Traveling actually opens your mind because now you can look at a problem from a different point of view that you probably would have looked at before. And it's like, it's different. So that's why I like doing that, and I love talking to people from different cultures. So yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, I would have had my first TED Talk. Hopefully, I would have had at least 10,000 yearly students in the school. Podcast still going, and then the media company would be a full-blown multimedia movement of people where we're producing documentaries as well as little mini shorts on different ways to become global leaders in the world. I don't know. I guess I'm ambitious.
I think it's like 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Like it is. If we are focused, if we work on like 16 different projects, then 5 years is not so much time.
Yeah.
But 5 years you can do a lot in 5 years. Like, I think that one of the things that we often do is like set a really big goal for like 3 months, and it's like you need a little bit more time. Like physically, you need more time to do stuff. Have you read the latest book, Bold by Peter Diamandis?
No, I have not, but that's something it sounds like I should read it. So
It's really, really cool. It's about exponential technologies, the future, and why we should be optimistic about it. One of the things that really struck my mind was like thinking 10x. Like it's important to think really big, bold thoughts, because if you do that, you think differently about your objective, like your goal. And even if you only reach 5x, it's still really good, right? But you cannot reach 5x without thinking 10x.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there a saying aim for the sky or aim for the moon, and if you miss, at least you be among the stars or something like that?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly, I completely identify with that, for sure.
And one of his points was like, if you only think, we're going to increase revenue by 5%, then you'll probably increase it by 2.5%. So I thought that was really, really interesting. One of my most favorite authors, actually, at the moment, Peter Diamandis, XPRIZE, founder of XPRIZE, written 2 books. One is called Abundance. One is called Bold. I always think of Bold because I'm kind of losing my hair a little bit.
Hey, so, Bold Look is in town now, so it's okay.
Of course. And people can't tell your age when you shave your head, right?
Ah, so true.
You also look like a big baby. But what are your top 3 books?
This is crazy. So for me, I love The Alchemist. Everybody always says that you were talking about big dreams. That's why I was trying to contain my excitement. The Alchemist is such a simple, small book, but the story is timeless. It's about this guy going through his personal journey and overcoming all sorts of obstacles, but he dared to dream bigger than just being a shepherd. So I love that. That's always one of the top 10 there. And then as far as the other 2, they always rotate. I love a lot. The self-help books that I love are, I'm trying to think of, there's this one, the Tim Ferriss books were good. 4-Hour Workweek was really good for me. I love that. And then this third book, I can't think of one right now, but it's usually one. I usually go around the non-fiction section in the leadership area.
Okay.
But let you know. But yeah, The Alchemist, 4-Hour Workweek. Those are the two I can think of for now.
Fantastic. I love The Alchemist as well, and 4-Hour Workweek, amazing book. I mean, that's what really shifted my perspective.
It did. It did. It shifted. It's crazy. I want to read. What's his name? The guy that's always doing public speaking right now. We're just talking. He said he's doing quite well earlier.
Oh, Brendan Burchard?
Yeah, the big one before Brendan Burchard. Everybody knows.
Tony Robbins.
Yes, Tony Robbins. He just wrote a book about money, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about it. I don't know. I haven't had the time to read it though. But
it could be it could have been half the size.
Oh, okay.
But it's definitely worth reading. But the cool thing with books is that you don't have to read it cover to cover. You can read a chapter, right? So it's definitely worth reading.
But you say it could have been half the size though.
Yeah, I think like he talks a lot about sort of emotional, like our emotions to money and how much money, how big a role money plays in our lives. And stuff like that. Like, okay. If he only wanted to give the hardcore advice, he could have written like 200 pages or something.
Okay.
But I think he wanted to write a long book, and he wanted to write an entertaining book, so that's why he did it in that format. But it's definitely worth reading. I changed some strategies based on that book. I actually sold all my stocks. I've stopped gambling on companies now, and I only buy different types of index funds with my investments, because I like my stocks doubled since I bought them, and I have no idea why. And it's just because, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. That's why I've made money. So it's basically gambling, and I'm not really into gambling with, like, I like gambling a little bit, but not like with a lot of money.
I think that's the best type, not to gamble a lot of money. Okay, cool.
Tayo, man, this has been a true pleasure. I wish you all the best with the launch of uyduniversity.com. If you want more information about Tayo, you can go to tayorockson.com. That's TAYOROCKSON.com. He is highly Googleable. That means you can easily find him on the internets. I wish you a great weekend, and thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.